Salve Regina, Mater misericordiae, vita dulcedo, estes nostra salve.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Someone in the crowd said to Jesus, "Teacher, tell my brother to share the inheritance with me." He replied to him, "Friend, who appointed me as your judge and arbitrator?" Then he said to the crowd, "Take care to guard against all greed. For though one may be rich, one's life does not consist of possessions." Then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, "What shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest." And he said, "This is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones. There I shall store all my grain and other goods, and I shall say to myself, 'Now as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, be merry.' But God said to him, 'You fool, this night your life will be demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus will it be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in what matters to God." The Gospel of the Lord.
Today's Gospel reminded me of a family that I knew where there was a huge fight going on about inheritance from a will. And what was interesting is one of the sons got the whole inheritance and the other one got nothing. And so the son who got nothing started to complain. He decided to take his brother to court and work this out. And the brother who received the inheritance was a kind guy, and he went to see a lawyer also for his own defense. And the lawyer said, "Trust me on this. When there's so much fuss about that, in the long run, it won't be worth it for you." And so the older brother capitulated to the younger brother, who got the entire inheritance. How beautiful. However, within a week of the time he got his check, court summonses started coming to him in the mail. It seemed like there was some nefarious activity going on in the family with the father, and lawsuits were stacking up on him. And so the brother who got the inheritance had to turn over all his money to the courts to straighten out what happened illegally. Where did all the wealth go? It's ironic. This gospel passage today reminds us that we need to really consider the difference between the wealth of things and of money as opposed to the wealth of gaining heaven. St. Paul talks about it this way: all of us once lived among them in the desires of the flesh. In other words, people mostly living without any reference to God and not being very moral about it. And Paul is reminding us that that temptation is in all of us, to go get away from our morality and our standards that should be our Christian basis. St. Paul goes on to say, God is rich in mercy because of his great love for us. And by grace we have been saved. He's asking people to look at that. God is rich in mercy. And for us to not forget about the riches of God's mercy and the riches of his grace. And so, St. Paul continues to describe the situation. He might show that God wants to show the immeasurable riches of his grace in the kindness, in his kindness to us in Jesus Christ. And so we have to be very careful about pushing Jesus aside so that we can have opportunities that may even be nefarious in the secular world. And so this rich man here that we talk about, who filled up his grains and made himself a comfortable life, he asks himself, I shall store, I shall say to myself, I shall rest, I shall eat, I shall drink. All about it, it's all about me. I, the anti-Trinity, me, myself, and I. However, God wants to be merciful to us if we would turn away from this kind of selfishness. For this man in the gospel who was made himself very rich, he had no time to be grateful to God and offer thanksgiving. He even couldn't do that. And so, in the parable, Jesus says, you fool, this very night your life will be required of you. And to whom will all this wealth go? Of course, when we die, we can't take any of that with us. And if that's our trademark, it's very minor compared to the glory of God. And so Jesus continues, thus it will be for the one who stores up treasure for himself, but is not rich in the matters of God. And so that we, his children, might be longing for heaven instead of longing for a self-satisfying life at this short time on the planet of Earth. Let's stand in prayer.
Regina Celi, letare, alleluia, qui aquam meruisti portare, alleluia, resurrexit sicut dixit, alleluia, ora pro nobis Deum, alleluia.